Lan, welcome to Boss.
Hi, how's it going?
It's great. I am so excited to have you on Boss. And for those who have not seen Boss yet, Boss is my amazing LinkedIn interview series where I interview my badass executive network to help others learn, network, and pay it forward in this crazy new normal that is 2020.
Really simply, I'm someone whose goal is to just make the world a better place. My goal right now is to kind of build my business, which is Community of Seven. And our whole goal is how do you bring people like thought leaders, executives, change makers together to change the world. And so my goal has always been how do you bring people together just to leave the world a better place for our children?
Oh, I love that. And especially because our children are now friends and like we're so I think that brings me to my next question. Like, how do we know each other? Do you remember that dinner?
Totally. I like how can I forget first meeting you? So we were actually at a they call a superwoman dinner, and it's hosted by this amazing founder and
Yeah. Yes.
yes, Yao, this amazing founder and comedian, entrepreneur. And we went to this dinner, and I remember you talking, like we had to do kind of like a round robin of introductions. And I remember you went on, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to meet her because you were just so spunky and fun. And so we actually reached out to you probably like a month later, and we like had lunch at Soho House. Reunited when I got to Fortune magazine, and I had posted about my recent job and getting hired, and you were like, oh, I'm going to be at Most Powerful Women Next Gen, and I was like, I'm going to be there too. And so we ended up being like BFFs and hanging out that during that whole conference, which was so much fun. And I think the rest is history. We've kind of just been in each other's lives and intertwined since.
Oh,
And you were one of my co-hosts along with Mita Malik when I launched the whole Let's Talk series earlier this year.
and this was like one of your babies, right? In terms
Yeah.
of we're now forced to be at home, right? We're all, for the most part, working from home if we're fortunate enough to be doing that, and don't really have these large in-person networking communities that we used to. And so getting together executives and rising stars and founders to really talk about what was happening in the world in our lives and a shoulder to kind of lean on has just been, of course, when you're like, I'm doing this, oh my God, I'd love to help.
The reason why it was started was it was funny because Amita, who at that time was the head of diversity and inclusion at Unilever and one of my dear friends, we were on the phone, and this was right at the beginning of COVID. And, we were homeschooling, we were working crazy hours, and we were just going crazy, literally. And remember talking to Mita, and she was just saying, God, wouldn't it be great if we had a space where working moms and execs could really talk about what we're going through? And she didn't know it at that time, but I was going through a really deep depression um, because everyone was dying. It was the beginning of COVID. I would literally wake up 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, scroll on my phone, and just spiral into this deep depression because I was just feeling helpless. And in a lot of ways, having those conversations, and I literally had just emailed maybe 20, 30 executives and friends. You were one of them. And it kind of grew from there, to the point where we, at one point, like would have 100 people on the phone. And it would just be conversations to talk about like how hard it is going through this period in our lives. And in a lot of ways, that call helped me get through. I mean, it saved my life in some ways because it got me through that really dark period of my life.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Thank you for sharing that. And I feel like you did such amazing prep at the beginning of each of those calls in terms of even figuring out like, how are people doing? And I feel like there was a lot of best practices shared within that community and that network in terms of how do you structure a remote like event too to
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
get people involved.
Yeah, it's such a different animal because I've been in, kind of marketing the event world, membership world, community building for the past 20 years, and everything was done in person, right? So those kind of close conversations, how do you make people feel like they're a part of this community? And it's very different when you have just this small screen. And so a lot of that is the questions you ask. It's the type of people you bring on. It's less about celebrity and more so about people who are really honest and are vulnerable.
How did you get to where you are now? And where did that kind of brain trust boss network come
I
from?
always joke around and just say that I've been looking for my community since I was in the womb. My parents are Vietnamese refugees, and I was literally in my mom's womb while we were escaping Vietnam. And so when we came to America because someone sponsored us, an American family had sponsored us, and we came with the backs on, the shirts on our back, and we were fed because the community fed us, the churches and all this other stuff. So community has always been a big part of my life. And so, I moved around a lot, from the Tenderloin in San Francisco to Los Angeles. Your community is what makes you who you are, right? So I've been always trying to bring people together. Since I was probably a kid. So it kind of came natural when I went to the ANA, and I was kind of building the CMO practice and master circle there. And then I led membership. And then I became the general manager of See Her, which is how do you bring the industry together to solve gender equality. And then it kind of came natural when I went to Fortune, and it was about bringing executives together. Mm-hmm. So when I started building Community of Seven, I realized that for my next chapter, I really wanted to focus on how do you bring people together to make the world a better place, because that's my passion and that's what I want to see. I want to leave the world a better place for my daughter. And I really believe that other people want to do the same.
For Morgan and others. Yes. Yes.
I have this raindrop theory, which is individually, we're like raindrops. What we do seems small and inconsequential, but when we come together, we become the ocean. The ocean creates ripples, and those ripples create waves. And that's how movements are made, and that's how you change the world.
Oh, amazing. So speaking of changing the world, what do you think are the most important leadership qualities for executives today?
Definitely, probably the number one is being a servant leader, which is, it's about inspiring. It's about like having a vision of what you want to be created or done, whether it's a business or an organization or whatever it is. And you have to inspire people.
The Global 500 list has women running just 13 out of 500 of the companies that made the cut. There are absolutely no women of color on that entire list.
I mean, it really takes concerted effort by many individuals. It's not just one person, of course. But one of the things we used to always say at See Her is, if you can see her, you can be her. And I really believe that, because being able to see Kamala Harris in one of the most powerful roles in America, in the world, is life-changing. And I think one way you change it is representation in terms of who is on the TV screen, who is in, Congress, the parliament, etc. Right? So that's one aspect. The other is just like kind of training and development. I think we have to kind of start very early on in terms of education and, getting people ready for these roles. And the other thing is sponsorship, I think is kind of really important as well. Kamala is like half Jamaican and half South Asian. My daughter is half Jamaican and half Asian. So for me, it was so powerful as I was watching, their acceptance speech the night before. I was watching it with my daughter, and I just looking at her kind of look at someone that looked like her. That was so powerful. I mean, that alone, I think being able to see that is basically shattering so many stereotypes, and also giving these young girls all around the world hope that they could one day be anything they really want. So in terms of how you could help, attend one of our events, go to communityofseven.com, the community about 50,000 people, on our social pages, but just come and join.
What is the most important skill that leaders need for the future of work?
Vision.
Favorite career role model or favorite boss?
My favorite boss has definitely been Alan Murray from Fortune.
One piece of advice for future bosses.
It's about your people.
Who do you think I should have present boss?
Salesforce, I think, would be a good one. There's a big connection with that. You have a lot of senior CMOs and leaders. I think that would be a great fit. Just one thing, and that's, you're so freaking awesome.
I love having you in my executive brain trust.
Exactly.
Thank you
Thank you for
again
being
for
a
your
part of my community.